I woke at 3:45 like every day. Austin was still pitch dark, a draft slipping through the doorframe carrying a faint smell of damp earth. In the narrow kitchen of Sunrise and Salt, the warm amber of the filament bulb spilled across the flour-dusted work table. I, Nora Whitman, 62, kept the same dawn ritual fire up the oven, weigh the starter, drizzle warm water over the flour, then sink both hands into the dough as if I could push last night's worries into the wood. My bakery is small, just enough space for 2 glass cases and a few little tables tucked by the windows. But every morning, when the first batch finishes baking and the scent of yeast and butter braids through the room, I feel like this house is breathing, living, whispering to me, "Keep going, Nora." Since my husband died, I've managed alone, clinging to these tiny rhythms to pull myself through sleepless nights. When my phone buzzed, I had just finished a batch of sourdough, set the loaves on the rack, and brushed a little flour from the case. 7:12. I flinched. Who calls at this hour? An unknown number lit the screen. I hesitated a beat, picturing Caleb, my son. Maybe he'd forgotten his wallet again or something at the auto shop had gone wrong. I slid my thumb to accept. "Is this Mrs. Whitman? We're calling from Lakeview Medical Center. Your daughter-in-law, Serena Ortiz, has been in a traffic accident. She's being rushed to neurology. The condition is critical. Can you come at once?" A strange humming flooded my ear like someone had dropped a big bowl over my head. I braced a hand on the table to keep my knees from buckling. I'll be right there," I said, not recognizing how hoarse my voice had gone. I shut the order book and grabbed the coat behind the door. My regulars were still lined up on the block. The night shift cop, the college girl who always buys blueberry muffins, the neighbor who likes her coffee tar black. I glanced back, guilty, but my feet were already moving. On the threshold, I froze Leo. He's in 3rd grade, and I'd promised to pick him up early for a parent-teacher activity. I couldn't leave him standing there waiting. I also couldn't let him hear the news from anyone else. I locked up and climbed into Caleb's old pickup, which he kept at the shop for me, and my hands shook so hard it took 3 tries to get the key to catch. South Congress was growing busy, cars piling up, sunlight thinly spread across the rooftops, while time thickened like a stone slab. I clenched the wheel. "Steady, steady now, Nora," I told myself. At the school gate, Leo stood hugging his superhero backpack, toe-tapping the brick edge, humming a cartoon tune. He saw me, waved his face, lighting up. That look, my God, it was like someone yanked me back from a cliff. I stepped out, forcing a smile. "Hop in, sweetheart." I went around to open the back door. Only after he clicked the seatbelt did I say each word, scraping my throat raw. "Your mom had an accident. We're going to the hospital now." The smile shut off like a flipped switch. He only nodded, small hands clutching the strap of his backpack, no questions. I knew he was scared, and I had nothing sure to offer. We shot through intersections, horns, brakes, wind. I checked the left mirror and the right, then looked back at him. Leo stared out the window, wide-eyed, the old oaks streaming past, like they were running away. Lakeview Medical Center rose with its cold green glass walls and white lights so bright they hurt. In the lobby, people moved fast, rubber soles whispering over shiny floors. Disinfectant hung thick as fog. I took Leo's hand. His fingers kept tightening around mine. On the row of chairs, Caleb was slumped over, hair a mess, white t-shirt flecked with brownish red. I knew it was blood. He sprang up when he saw us and grabbed me like the toddler who once skinned his knee and ran crying into my arms. "Ma, Serena," they said. "Deep coma," he stammered, voice splitting. I held him, and I felt those broad but humble shoulders shake. "I'm here," that's all I could say. Leo clung to his father's pant leg and looked up. "Does it hurt, Daddy?" "For Mom." Caleb bent to rest a hand on his head, lips pressed thin, unable to answer. In that moment, 3 generations overlapped under harsh white light. An old mother trying to hold up her son, a young father with nothing left to grip, and a child learning to be silent so the adults might hurt less. After that time, bent out of shape. We sat on cold plastic chairs listening to the intercom drone doctors' names, the squeak of gurneys, the heavy breathing of others waiting. Everyone jerked upright each time the ER doors opened, but it was only a nurse pushing a cart or someone else chasing a doctor. I didn't pray for anything specific, just whispered, if there's any miracle left in the world, let it be for my child. The door swung wide. A middle-aged man in a white coat stepped out, stainless steel name badge, flashing Dr. Randall Pike, medical director. His face was composed as if he'd practiced all his life. "Family of Serena Ortiz?" he asked. Caleb nodded. I tightened my grip on Leo's hand. "We've addressed the trauma, but the patient is in a deep coma. We'll monitor closely. When the patient wakes, depends greatly on her physical condition and the patient's will." Will he drop the word like a rock into water? I didn't know what part of that sentence I could hold to for comfort. "May I see my daughter-in-law?" I asked. He nodded, gesturing down the hall. "Family may observe through the glass. Please keep quiet for the patient." The corridor to 412 felt longer than it was. I led Leo beneath strips of flat fluorescent light that left no shadows. Inside, Serena lay on snow-white sheets, wires fixed to her arm chest and temples. Her face was pale lips, closed lashes still as if glued. I couldn't help thinking of her on the wedding day, lace dress, sunflowers in her hands, a smile so gentle I loved her at once. "I've gained a daughter," I told her then. Now, through this window, I saw only a body fallen into silence, time stripping away her voice. Caleb pressed his forehead to the glass. "Serena, can you hear me?" His voice cracked like dry wood. In the reflection, I saw him tip sideways as if he could pass through the wall to touch her. Leo stood close and pulled a drawing from his backpack that he had colored the day before, 3 figures in front of a bakery, a big round sun behind. He pressed it to the glass and whispered, "Mom, me and Grandma are waiting for you to return for waffles." A young nurse came softly. "Please keep it quiet." Her badge read Jenna S. Her face was kind, but a flicker crossed it like a brief hesitation. Or maybe I imagined it. Perhaps I was too tired to read anyone right. I nodded. Caleb dropped into a chair, fingers laced, staring at the beeping monitors. Each green wave rose and vanished, tapping my chest with a single message still alive. That night, I had to drag Leo home. Caleb insisted on staying. "I'll sleep in the hall, in case anything." I looked at him, stubble rough from sleepless nights, and saw a young man turned suddenly old. "I'll bring sourdough and chicken soup in the morning," I said, because keeping my hands busy felt like the only thing I could still control. The house was strangely hollow with just the 2 of us. After his bath, Leo perched on the bed, clutching his Spider-Man pillow, eyes wide at the ceiling. I smoothed his hair. "Sleep now, we'll visit early." He nodded, but I knew he'd toss and turn. I shut the door, went to the kitchen and faced a stack of bills. Butter and flour invoices, a higher electric bill from the oven, Leo's school fees and hospital costs. I opened my little ledger and tried to tally, but the numbers blurred, floated, then lumped in my throat like a stone. I brewed ginger tea, lifted the cup, and breathed in the steam. Years ago, when Caleb was little and feverish, I kept vigil like this, listening for each breath. A mother's instincts never really leave feeling a forehead with the back of your hand, knowing when to hush, when to be stern. But that instinct suddenly felt small against machines and strange words like edema and prognosis. With no one to hold, I held the cup. The doorbell rang. I jumped. Who would come? Now I peeked through the curtain. It was Mrs. Peterson from across the street, a paper bag in her arms. Heard from the shop clerk. "I brought a bit of stew. Keep your strength up." I opened the door and smiled my thanks. It's odd how the slightest kindness can keep a person standing. Night crawled. I lay there, eyes open, listening to the clock and the wind drag across the porch. Every sound could be the phone. I feared the ring. I feared the silence. Before my lids finally dropped, I still saw Serena under that white light and heard Dr. Pike's phrase looping in my head, "Depends on the patient's will." What kind of will can listen to an 8-year-old whisper through cold glass? What will know a man is learning to grow numb to his own tears as he waits in a sweaty hallway. If will were a rope, I wished I could tie it around all of us and yank it toward this side. Before the alarm could go off, I was up. The oven needed heat, the dough needed kneading, Leo needed waking, and Caleb needed a hot soup. Even when a part of it is broken, life demands the same repeated motions so you don't fall through. I pressed both palms to the work table and breathed, "All right, Nora." Once the dough turned smooth and I tucked a cloth over the bowl and set the timer, my phone lit up at the counter's edge. Unknown Lakeview Medical. My heart dropped a beat. I wiped my hands and grabbed it. The receptionist's voice was calm. "Mrs. Whitman, the doctor, would like the family to come in early today for an update on the patient." I gripped the phone. "We'll be there." I set it down and leaned into the cabinet, hearing my heart knock 4 hollow times in my chest. I'll tell the rest. But before we go on, let me ask you, the ones reading these first lines. In that moment, would you choose to pray in silence or run everywhere searching for an answer? Comment to tell me what you think. Share this story if someone needs it, and follow to catch the next chapters as they unfold. Mornings at Lakeview Medical Center never changed the intercom's steady announcements, disinfectant threading into every fold of clothing, hurried steps skimming the white tile. For me, each day was twice as long. Time wasn't measured in minutes anymore, but by the pulses on a monitor and the faintest breath drifting from behind the glass. 3 weeks had passed since Serena's accident. My daughter-in-law lay there, a wax figure between crisp sheets and surgical light. After dropping off the morning orders for my regulars, I went straight to the hospital. Sunrise and Salt stayed open, but the laughter had thinned. I baked less and sold less. Most of my time belonged to the hospital, the rest to Leo. He no longer talked about school, flashed test scores, and sang with the radio. He ate quietly, shouldered his backpack quietly, and asked the same line every morning. "We'll see Mom this afternoon, right?" Each time I just nodded, my chest tightening. Some griefs don't need words, you can read them in a child's eyes. The 4th-floor corridor was long and cold. The fluorescent light was so steady it felt indifferent. I sat beside Caleb, staring at paper cups of coffee gone cold in his hands. He barely spoke anymore. Hair-long beard, unshaved, shadows sunk around his eyes. At first he asked the doctors every day if there was hope. Eventually he went quiet when the answer shrank to, "Let's wait." Every night I told him, "Go home, sleep, I'll watch Serena." He only shook his head, the gaze of someone who had lost his bearings. Once I came early and found him slumped on a plastic chair, clutching his wedding ring, mumbling, "Open your eyes." I didn't know what else to do. I sat and laid a hand on his shoulder. One question kept knocking in my head: could Serena still hear us? The bills mounted. Each week brought a newer, longer list, like a paper roll with no-end injections, IVs, special bed neuromonitoring. I've baked my whole life, but I've never seen numbers that made my hands tremble like that. I called the billing department. The woman on the line, voice flat, "Consider the extended coma care package. The department head, Dr. Pike, supervises personally, so costs may be eased if you pay up front." I stalled. "Pay up front?" "Yes, that's how our priority program works for special status patients." "Special?" I echoed, feeling cold. "What kind of priority makes you borrow hope on credit?" I knew something was off, but Caleb had no space for money talk. He said, "I don't care as long as Serena gets the best care." So I fell quiet and scrambled on my own, supplying more loaves to a coffee chain near campus, working nights for a few extra $100, though my wrists burned every time I needed. After Leo fell asleep, I logged expenses. Each line felt like a tiny blade nicking at my faith. Leo changed. From a bright little boy, he went oddly mute. His teacher, Mrs. Clark, called Mrs. Whitman, "Leo hardly talks. He doesn't play with others. He sits alone. Loud noises seem to scare him." My heart cracked. I came home and found him curled in a chair, hugging a worn superhero book, eyes far away. "How was school today, Leo?" He shrugged, without looking up. After a beat, he asked Grandma if Mom sleeps too long. "Will she forget my face?" I froze. I didn't know what to say, so I drew him in and held him. His hair smelled of kid soap and a trace of sweat, the smell that breaks your heart with one breath. "No, sweetheart. She won't forget. She's just a little farther away for now." He nodded, eyes glossy. I realized the deepest wound in this family wasn't inside a hospital room, it was in an 8-year-old heart. Caleb started losing himself. I found him at a tiny hall table with a little bottle tucked in his jacket every evening. I had wanted to scold him to snatch it away, but I understood he had no other way to smother despair. One morning, I returned to see him sleeping upright against the wall, an empty bourbon rolling underfoot. I tucked a thin blanket around his shoulders. Jenna, the young nurse, walked by, sighed. "He shouldn't keep drinking, you know. It's not good." I nodded, voice rough, I know. "Thank you." When she left, I sat and watched my son's shoulders shiver in a broken nap. I thought of Serena, how she filled our table with chatter and warm meals. She told me, "If Caleb smiles, I'm happy." I believed her. I thought it until their world fell apart like flour sliding off a board. That day, Austin poured. Rain hammered the hospital roof like 1,000 fists. I brought hot rolls and chicken soup and headed down a quiet hall. As I set the bag down, I heard Doctor Pike in a nearby meeting room, husky but clear. "Keep observation status. Don't disclose anything further to the family, especially the mother-in-law. I'll handle the paperwork." I stopped, heart thudding. Don't disclose anything further. Paperwork about whom? I edged closer, but the door clicked shut. Only rain drummed in the corridor. I went back to the chairs, mind whirling. Maybe it was purely clinical, I told myself, but the unease curled in like smoke. Dr. Pike was polite and composed, yet it felt like he was hiding another layer whenever he said the patient's will. That night I couldn't sleep. His words flipped over and over in my head, and I saw Jenna's flicker of panic again. Something in this hospital was wrong. I knew it. The next morning, Sunrise and Salt opened late. I didn't hear the bell ring for regulars anymore. The dough in the bowl rose, and I forgot to put it in the oven. It ballooned and collapsed. The once-beloved smell turned my stomach. A regular Mrs. Dean asked Nora, "I heard your daughter-in-law's in a coma." "I'm so sorry. Dr. Pike at Lakeview, right?" "They say he's brilliant with the complicated cases." I forced a smile. "Thank you." But once she turned away, the smile fell. I didn't want pity. I wanted the truth. Was my daughter-in-law truly poised between life and death, or was someone staging a private play while my family drowned? Leo slept. Caleb was at the hospital. I sat by the window, city lights wavering in puddles. The rain eased to a wind. It rattled the old wooden frame. A medical brochure rustled across the counter. I picked it up and read Extended Coma Care Level 3. Below was Randall Pike's signature heavy strokes, decisive. I drew a long breath. Maybe I was paranoid. Perhaps it truly was an accident, just a brutal twist of fate. But a small bell kept ringing inside. "Something's wrong, Nora. Terribly wrong." I set the paper down and looked at Leo's doorway. He slept on his side, breathing evenly. I thought of Serena, of Caleb, of the long road ahead. However tired I was, I couldn't let go. I lost my husband to a sudden stroke. I would not lose my son or let my grandson grow up under the shadow of a lie. Outside drizzle began again. I whispered, mostly to myself, "Tomorrow, I'll go earlier." I didn't know what awaited, but I felt it. The night had already changed something forever. Morning sunlight slipped between the blinds, spilling pale gold across the counter of Sunrise and Salt. I was wiping flour from the trays when my phone buzzed, Caleb's name flashing. My heart clenched. He rarely called this early. "Mom." His voice rasped. "Leo wants to visit Serena after school. You can come later." "Of course," I said automatically. "Is there any chance?" He hesitated. "Same. Still asleep. Still asleep." That phrase had become the cruel rhythm of our days, like the endless beeping of Serena's monitor. When we arrived at room 412 that afternoon, the same white hum swallowed the hallway. Caleb sat motionless with a rough beard and hands clasped around Serena's still fingers. I told Leo to stay quiet and guided him to the glass wall. He stood on tiptoe, pressing his palms against the cold pane. "Grandma," he whispered, "Mom's not sick. She's pretending." The words struck me like an electric jolt. "What are you saying, honey? Don't talk like that." But Leo's little face stayed solemn. He dug in his backpack, pulled out an old phone his father had given him, and swiped open a video. On the screen, Serena's room. Same sterile light, same machines. For several seconds, nothing moved. Then Serena's eyelids flickered, her eyes opened. She looked around, alert. With calm precision, she scratched her cheek, reached for a glass of water, sipped, then lay back, closing her eyes again. The heart monitor rhythm never changed. I froze. My breath caught. Grandma Leo said in a trembling whisper, "I saw it many times. When nobody's here, she wakes up." So I recorded it. I sank into the nearest chair, the phone slippery in my hands. I wanted to believe it was some reflex, some nerve twitch, but no. What I saw was awareness. "Leo," I said quickly, "you must not tell your father. Not yet. Promise me." He nodded, wide-eyed. I tucked the phone into my purse, just as Caleb stirred. "What are you two whispering about homework?" I said. My voice sounded normal too, normal. That night I couldn't sleep. The images looped behind my eyelids, Serena's eyes opening, that quick sip of water. My heart pounded like fists against a locked door. At dawn, I was back at the hospital. The corridors were half dark, the air heavy with sanitizer. Dr. Randall Pike wasn't there yet. Only the young nurse Jenna was creeping around the bed. I watched from the doorway. Her motions were mechanical, but her eyes kept darting toward the corridor. Twice she murmured something too soft to catch. Guilt clung to her like static. When she came out, I stepped forward. "Good morning, Jenna. Tell me honestly, has my daughter-in-law ever shown signs of movement?" "When no one's here?" She jumped, dropping her pen. "Mrs. Whitman? I don't know what you mean." "You do?" I said gently but firmly. Her lips trembled. "Please don't ask me that. I'm just following Dr. Pike's orders." "What orders?" Tears welled in her eyes. "He told me not to tell anyone, that she sometimes wakes up. I swear I only did what I was told." The hallway spun around me. My knees nearly gave way. That afternoon, I left the hospital with shaking hands and went straight to Detective Sam Davis, an old friend of my late husband, a retired cop now working as a private investigator. I told him everything and showed him Leo's video. He watched it 3 times face tight. "This is no medical anomaly, Nora," he said. "It's a setup. I'll dig into Pike and the hospital records, but keep this to yourself, especially from your son." I nodded, though fear gnawed at me. What kind of setup needs a woman to fake a coma? 2 nights later, Davis called me to a dingy coffee shop on East 6th Street. He slid a folder across the table. Inside were photographs Serena in a hospital gown walking unaided down a dim hallway at 2 a.m., hair tied back alert. In the next shot, she entered Dr. Pike's office. Light leaked from the crack under the door. My stomach lurched. "She's been up multiple nights," Davis said quietly. "Always goes to his office. And Nora? There's another thing. Pike's finances look dirty. Shell accounts missing insurance money." I pressed a trembling hand to my mouth. "You think—" "They're working together, I think," he said grimly. "Your daughter-in-law isn't just pretending to be ill. She's part of an insurance fraud." The world tilted. At that moment, I thought of Caleb, faithful, shattered Caleb, sleeping on a plastic chair, believing his wife hovered between life and death. And I thought of little Leo carrying the truth no child should bear. I whispered, "How do we prove it?" Davis leaned closer. "We'll catch them in the act." Outside, thunder rolled above the city. Inside me, another storm began. Before dawn, I crept upstairs to Caleb's room. He was snoring softly, an empty bottle near his hand. My heart hammered. I hated invading his privacy, but I needed proof. I found 2 blue folders in the closet under folded scarves tied with a rubber band. Inside, insurance contracts. One for long-term coma coverage worth $500,000. Another, a life policy naming Serena's husband as beneficiary payout, double that amount. But the payment receipts showed the premiums were wired from an unknown account, not Caleb's, not mine. I photographed every page, returned them, closed the drawer, and turned straight into Caleb's shadow. "Mom." "What are you doing?" I swallowed. Looking for the old photo album. I thought it was in here. He rubbed his eyes, muttered something about needing coffee, and left for the kitchen. My legs nearly gave out. Later that day, I met Davis again. He pushed new photos across the table, Serena and Doctor Pike sitting in a car at midnight, hands touching faces close. Lovers. Accomplices. She's not just faking, Davis said. They're planning to cash the policies and disappear. Someone pounded on the back door as I wiped the bakery counter that evening. 3 men stood there, tattoos, leather jackets, hard eyes. The biggest shoved a crumpled paper toward me. Where's Serena? She owes us 50 grand, time to pay up. My throat dried. You've got the wrong house, she's in a coma. The man laughed. Coma. She's been buying time. You tell her 1 week, or we'll take it from her family. Neighbors peeked from porches. I went inside, shaking opened my kitchen safe, grabbed all my savings, 6 years of scrimping for Leo's future, and thrust the cash into the man's hand. Please, take this, give me a week. He pocketed it, smirked. 7 days, Grandma. When they left, I slumped on the floor, dizzy with rage and humiliation. A few minutes later, my phone buzzed a message from Davis. Check your mail. Attached a short audio clip. Serena's voice explicit, deliberate. Let me sleep for a few more weeks, then we'll move to the final step. The insurance money will settle all the debts and give us a new life. Then Pike's low murmur. Relax, Serena. Everything's going fine. As long as no one suspects, we win. I dropped the phone. My heart pounded so loud I could hear it echo off the tiles. I sat in the dark until sunrise that night, staring at the wall. Then I stood, washed my face, and whispered to my reflection, Enough. At breakfast, Caleb sat at the table, pale and hollow-eyed. I laid the folder, the photos, and the phone before him. Marcus. I almost used his childhood name, Caleb. You need to see this. He glanced at the papers, then at me. What's this proof? Serena's not in a coma. She and Dr. Pike are behind this whole thing. They planned the accident. He stared at the photos, then flung them to the floor. No. You're lying. She'd never. She loves me. I pressed play on the recording. Serena's voice filled the kitchen. Let me sleep a few more weeks. Caleb's face drained of color. He covered his ears, shouting, Stop! Stop! Then he collapsed into the chair, shaking. Why, Mom? Why would she do this to me, to Leo? I gathered him into my arms. I don't know, son. But now we know the truth, and we'll end it. He broke away, went to the cabinet, poured bourbon into a glass, and drained it. The sound of ice clinking was like a small explosion in the silence. When he slammed his bedroom door, the echo felt like a hammer against my ribs. The next morning, I met Davis at our usual cafe. He said, We have enough for the police recordings, insurance papers, photos. But if you want Caleb to believe, we must catch them live. I'll contact Captain Lisa Coleman, she's on the fraud task force. That afternoon, my phone rang again. Dr. Pike's number. Mrs. Whitman. His voice purred. I'm afraid Serena's condition has worsened. You and your son should come early tomorrow. We'll deliver the final results. The final results. My blood ran cold. I hung up and looked at Davis. Tomorrow morning. That's when they'll try to declare her dead and cash the policy. He nodded. Coleman will be there with a warrant. That night, I took Leo across the street to Mrs. Peterson's. Sleep here, honey. Grandma and Daddy need to go early to the hospital. He frowned. Will Mom wake up tomorrow? I kissed his forehead. Maybe not, but the truth will. Back home, Caleb sat in the dark. I touched his shoulder. You have to come tomorrow. You need to see it with your own eyes. He looked up, eyes rimmed red. If it's true, I don't know who I'll be after. Then let's find out together. Morning came heavy and gray. Caleb drove. Neither of us spoke. In the hospital hallway, Nurse Jenna looked nervous and pale. Dr. Pike emerged with a folder, voice solemn. Mrs. Whitman, Mr. Whitman, please come in. Inside, relatives and staff gathered. Serena lay still, face marble white. Pike began. After many efforts, I regret to inform you that the patient's condition is worsening. She may not survive the day. The family must prepare. Muffled sobs filled the room. Caleb bowed his head, fists trembling. I clenched mine too, forcing myself to wait. The door burst open as Pike reached for his pen to sign the certificate. Captain Coleman strode in, followed by 2 officers. Dr. Randall Pike Serena Ortiz, you are under arrest for insurance fraud and conspiracy. Gasps rippled through the room. Then the impossible. Serena's eyes shot open. She sat up, screamed, "What are you talking about? This is slander!" Caleb froze. "Serena." Her face twisted with panic. "Caleb, please, they're lying." Coleman held up the evidence photos, contracts, the recording, and on my phone the video Leo had taken. The screen showed Serena waking, drinking water, and lying back down. The relatives' whispers turned to outrage. "God, she deceived us all!" Caleb staggered backward. "Why, Serena? Why?" She lunged toward him, sobbing. "I owed money. I wanted a better life for us." He pushed her away. "You left our son to mourn you for money." Officers snapped handcuffs on her wrists. Pike stood silent, head bowed. As they were led out, Serena's voice cracked. "Tell Leo I'm sorry." Caleb sank into a chair, shaking. I laid a hand on his shoulder. "It's over, son. We survived." But he just whispered, "Did we?" Months passed. Leaves turned gold over the courthouse steps. The day of sentencing arrived. Inside the packed courtroom, Serena sat at the defense table, thin, pale hair dull. Dr. Pike is beside her. Cameras clicked. The judge read the charges: multiple counts of insurance fraud, falsifying medical records, and conspiracy. The evidence appeared on screens, photos, recordings, contracts, Leo's video. Pike pleaded guilty, voice low. Serena tried to weep and reach Caleb with her eyes. "I just wanted to fix everything," she cried. Caleb stared back, stone-faced. "You destroyed us." Verdict: Pike 6 years, Serena 5. Repayment of damages ordered. The gavel struck sharp as a whip. Serena collapsed, sobbing. No one went to her. Caleb's tears fell quietly, not of grief but release. Outside, reporters swarmed. I said one sentence: justice was served. Never gamble with a family's love, the price is too high. Weeks later, life crept back. The bakery reopened, customers returned. I rose early, kneaded dough, filled the air with butter and yeast again. Leo laughed more, helping me bag pastries. His laughter was sunlight through storm clouds. Sometimes he asked, "When will Mom come back?" I'd smile gently. Some people go far away, but love stays close. Caleb found work at a local mechanic's, no more bottles. In the evenings, he read to Leo on the porch, their voices mingling with the crickets. One night, he told me, "I don't hate her anymore. I don't know who she was." I said, "Then start by knowing who you are." He nodded, eyes softer than I'd seen in years. A year later, a letter arrived, postmarked from the Travis County Correctional Facility. From Serena, Mrs. Whitman. "Thank you for exposing me. If you hadn't, I might never have stopped lying to them, to myself. I don't expect forgiveness. Please tell Caleb and Leo that I loved them the only way I knew how, wrongly. I hope Leo remembers me smiling, not crying." I folded the letter and placed it in a box under the counter, not to cherish her, but to remember what deceit costs. That night I dreamed of Serena standing silently by the ocean with the wind in her hair. When she turned, there were no eyes, just hollow light. I woke with tears and whispered, "Rest wherever you are." October again. Austin miled the oaks, shedding gold. The bakery smelled of cinnamon and peace. Caleb mixed dough. Leo sprinkled sugar, and laughter brightened as morning bells. Sometimes pain doesn't vanish. It ripens into strength. That evening after closing, Caleb brought me coffee on the porch. "Mom," he said, "thank you for saving us." I smiled. "You saved yourself, son." Leo darted out with a drawing, 3 figures under a yellow sun. "That's you, Daddy and Grandma," he said proudly. I pinned it above the register. The room glowed. I stood at the window when night came, watching the quiet street. The sign "Sunrise and Salt" gleamed faintly in the lamplight. Once that light had been my shield against the dark. Now it was simply home. I thought of George, my late husband, of all we'd lost and kept, of Serena, of Leo's laughter. I whispered to the glass, "Whatever storms come, there's always another morning," and I knew it was true.